Aloha everybody, Vincent Mina, President of Hawaii Farmers Union United. We're here at Mahi Pono, a diversified farming operation here on Maui, with the stakeholders from the Soil Health Initiative, a statewide initiative to look at soil health protocols and how they can better agriculture moving forward. We're going to go to a demonstration site to view the soils of existing soils that are at this site, and then we're going to come back to the boardroom. We're going to sit around a round table and discuss what we've seen, and then we're going to go out to a farm where we're going to look to implement some of these soil health practices in moving the Soil Health Initiative forward. So we're here at Mahi Pono on site one of a multi-site visit for potential soil health protocols we're going to bring forward. We're here at Site 2 of a potential site demonstration for the Soil Health Initiative. Being back here after visiting a couple of potential sites and talking with our fellow initiative folks here, I feel that it's given me a lot more questions than answers, and so that's a good thing, in the spirit that now I can feel as though there's more to address that needs being addressed. What I'm mainly concerned about would be that I don't want to saw sawdust. I don't want to get so analytical about things that we don't move forward in this initiative. And so my takeaway today is that it's really important that the relationships that we're building here, really appreciate Mahi Pono coming forward and holding space for this today. And also the fact that I'm heartened that we have soil health experts here that we can then address some of the things that we're looking to bring forward with this initiative.
I'm just delighted because I didn't know what kind of partnership we would have with Mahi Pono. And you are all just wonderful at opening up this opportunity and letting the team lead. And I'm very hopeful. I think that we have a chance to really make a difference in the way we can present soil health, both to the community, hopefully to the legislature and the government and the private sector. So right now I think it's a challenge to put together something that makes a difference, that we can handle, and we can really move forward with this. So I'm very hopeful.
Really grateful to be here, and especially grateful for the partners at the table. I think, like Vincent said, conservation is really about relationships. It's relationships with each other, our relationships with the producer, and relationship with the land. And like Vincent, also, I did walk away with more questions. But I think that's a good thing because it allows us to take a comprehensive look at really where the group is headed, refer back to our why, that vision, that mission, and our strategic goals, and really figure out what success looks like for the group. Because this isn't just about today, but it's about tomorrow, it's about future generations, and we've talked about that, right? And the importance that soil health plays for future generations in producing good quality, nutrient-rich food, but also using our resources wisely. And I think that's really, for me, a great opportunity to work with Jason, Mahi Pono team, and all the great scientists here that you're all going to bring to the table, and we'll figure out how to step forward and really develop what this means to the community, not only for producers from an economical, environmental stance, however you want to look at it, but also what it means to the community and the long-term impacts there. So just grateful to be here.
I've been working in soil health for quite a while now, and I've seen bits and pieces. Some cover crops here, some compost and mulch over here, different trials, but I think this group and the partners that are here, we have the potential to take it to the next step to build what we call a soil health management system. So that long-term focus on making those soils resilient, making them productive for a long time to come. So that's the future generations that will benefit. And then, yes, all the different kind of, like Travis said, the different components, the community, the producers, but really, as a soil scientist, helping other people understand how important soil is. And that's the missing link. That's why we've had kind of a patchwork of, adoption, but we need, just a push to get that wide scale adoption. And I think Mahi Pono's, going to be a great partner for that, because you guys are visible, and the fact that you're willing to work with us. And I think this is just one of many opportunities, I hope, for this group to push things forward.
I work with a lot of producers on a daily basis. Some, very open to soil health. Some you gotta convince them to do it. So I think with a project like this, an initiative like this, it gives it more visibility for some of those people that are a little more resistant to change, and just being able to use, the successes of this project and being able to show more people that it really works and it can be economically successful for them in the long run.
And my takeaway is that I'm just honored to be amongst all the soil experts here. We've heard it ad nauseum that Hawaii imports 85 to 90% of our food at a cost of $3 billion every year. So when we talk about growing our food here, soil health is an integral part of doing that. I'd also like to make the point that it's one of the things that we always talk about, but this is a good example of, and that is Mahi Pono, the private sector working with government together to tackle a very difficult issue. And so I'm just happy to be here today. Thank you.
I think it's, we have an opportunity to provide support and resources to the group so that this project can, have the best possibility for success. And at the same time, I think it's important that we're not driving the project. I think it's easy, we went out today, we looked at a few sites, and all of us that are concerned with soil health are like doctors in a sense. So it's easy for us to look at like, well, what we do to fix this problem and this problem and this problem. And it's important that, we're not here to fix Mahi Pono's problems, but we're here to support this project. And at the same time, we're really lucky because whatever happens, we're going to learn a lot from it, and we are going to fix some of our problems and hopefully leave this project with healthier soils and better fertility.
Thank you, Vince and Travis, for getting this group together and getting everybody here. We've been talking for several months now, but this is the first time I think we've all been in the same room together, and actually got to go out into the field and take a look at some of the inventory here. But I think it's important to reiterate what Darren said and what you said earlier about we're not here to lead, we're here to support and be a member of the project. So, it's not so much what Mahi Pono wants, what Mahi Pono needs, but how we can help this thing become a reality, because there are a lot of naysayers out there who don't think a group like this can get this thing done. But I think that there's power in the fact that this group is broad. It represents almost every sector of government and the private industry that's involved in soil activity. And so if we can do this properly, it can be a driver for what Hawaii needs.
I'm actually pretty excited about being part of this team. I'm a diversified farmer here in Maui, and I'm particularly interested in participating in this project as a seed producer. I would love to provide seed for all the core crops needs for Hawaii. I believe in crop health. I believe in cover crops, and I believe it's in Hawaii's best interest to have an industry, local industry, that can supply with the seeds that we need in this particular environment. So I'm very excited about meeting you all after hours of Zoom meetings, and thank you guys for hosting this.
I'm really excited about this project and passionate about it, because this is really kind of, I think, like where the rubber hits the road or whatever of some big goals that the state has. And we have really huge goals for local food production, really huge goals for climate change, and those two things are, climate change mitigation. Those two things are intrinsically connected, and they're connected by soil. And so I think the work that we're doing here is really important, and I'm excited that everybody's here together doing this, and that we have a great partner to help support some of the work we're doing. So I'm excited to see what our next steps are and what this project is going to look like, and happy to be a part of it.
I came away from the site today feeling anxious to work with you on this project because of what I saw. I think that I look at fields and identify the problems first, and I look, and if I can see, roughly what the problems are, then I know I can help a farm. And I think this group, through focus on soil health, can clearly help these soils. This couldn't have happened 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago. It couldn't have happened. We were interested in soil health, a group of us. We started to do conferences, but we could not sit at a table. We would not have the participants 10 years ago and 20 years ago to do this. And so I think it's a huge moment. And not only does it take the soil having a need, but it takes people who will cooperate. And so thank you. And thank you for letting me be with this team. I have the farmer's disease. I work alone all the time. So this is really, and college didn't work for me. And so this is really exciting to work with a group of people focused on soil health.
Thank you, Darren and Jason, for your hospitality. Thank you, Vince, for the invitation to join. I've been listening and writing and just observing, and mainly what I've observed today, beyond soil and citrus trees and what we've been shown by our hosts is a lot of open-mindedness and a lot of creativity. Like it's been said already around the table, this is a complex issue, soil health, and how it's attached to larger existential crises, food security, and climate change. So I just wanted to state that if it's not already apparent, just as sort of an outsider and someone who's new to the group, just watching the conversations happen, that's what I've seen is a lot of open-mindedness, a lot of creativity, a lot of willingness to listen and to flow with ideas from one person's perspective to the next, and that I imagine is critical to bringing together, an organization like Mahi Pono and individuals with such a diverse background. So thank you for having me here.
So if I can kind of wrap up this discussion, for me, as the saying goes, we're running out of time, yet we have all the time we need. And this collective, this soil health initiative, will either hold itself up or take itself down. And it's my hope, and I think that's where we've been successful, is that this methodical movement forward has had the agreement of the collective. So we're building a consensus along the way. I mean, I'm hoping that it's a consensus. I'm hoping that truly we respect what's happening together enough to want to go to the next step. And then we'll see what that next step is. When it's brought to my attention about, what are we going to do? Well, it'll be evident after we get done today. We're going to decide whether we want to continue to lead this movement forward or not as a collective. And I really appreciate, like Sebastian's saying, that there's a lot of open minds here, a lot of creativity here. And that's heartening to me because that's what it's going to take. We're here this morning as part of a statewide soil health initiative that's occurring, showing and demonstrating a cover crop that's been planted here at Hawai'i Taro Farm, being rolled and crimped down so this way it will make way for future crops. The soil health initiative brings in a lot of players in the agricultural sector. And we have Bobby Paia here, who planted the cover crop and rolled and crimped it. And then we're going to have a number of different people who are associated with this today to bring this forward as a demonstration as what's possible. We're here at Hawai'i Taro Farm with farmer Bobby Paia. Aloha, Bobby.
Aloha, good morning.
Mario Gashirio,
Aloha, good morning.
who grew the seed for this cover crop, and Bobby the Schaefer, who's the agronomist here. So what we're going to be talking about is the rolling and crimping of the cover crop and what effect that has on the soil and what we're observing from that rolling and crimping that's been done. This is the cover crop behind me. It's tropical sun hemp that the seed Mario grew. Bob, you rolled and crimped this morning.
Yep.
So can you talk to us about the roller crimper? What you see is going on here with when you roll and crimp this cover crop, what actually happens to it?
Well, as you can see, it gets laid down. The crimper, the roller crimper, basically breaks a stalk in several places and lays it down.
Because of that, then the cover crop will die in place?
Cover crop will die in place.
And then the roots are left
we will not
undisturbed.
Undisturbed. This plot of land will not be plowed never again.
So Mario, when you grew this seed, what was some of the things that you saw in the production of the seed that needed to be addressed?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit. This is a sun hemp. This is a tropic sun. It's a variety developed by Hawaii.
Okay.
And it's being grown by NRCS in Molokai. It's a crop that it takes a little bit of effort to harvest. As you see, there's a lot of material you need to go through when you combine these.
It takes a lot of effort to harvest because when you combine it, because of it being very fibrous, you know, there's a whole dance that goes on with this plant.
Right.
That's so fibrous that it can get stuck around the combine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have to look to ways to mitigate that happening. But what's beautiful, what I really like, what's happening is every 7 inches, that roller crimper crimps this crop to be able to not only lay it down, but to be able to have it to where it's organic matter on top of the soil, to where the sun's UV is not drying out the soil, is not making the soil hard, and the roots are now sloughing off in the ground. Bobby, can you talk about that?
Two things always going on with a cover crop. There's the above ground relationships and the presence of the cover crop above ground, but then below ground, the cover crop has a huge influence on soil. These are legumes. The sun hemp is a legume, and so it's fixing nitrogen from the air into its roots. This is a tap-rooted plant, fairly strong taproot, so it's going down. When we look at the backhoe pit, we'll see that the roots have went down pretty deep in this soil. So there's a contribution from the living plant to the soil while it's alive, and now there's going to be a contribution by the roots to the soil as these plants die.
Bobby, what did you find when you were planting the cover crop? How much seed did you use in this particular area? How big of an area would you say this is?
This area is about 1/3 of an acre, little larger. You know, this rate is normally 40 to 60 pounds per acre. I personally like to use a little higher rate, just because of one aspect that I'm using this cover crop for is a ground cover, so to suppress weeds. So that's why I like the thick matting.
Yes.
Also, it tends to draw more of beneficial insects.
Sun hemp, like sunflowers and like corn, has chemicals, pheromones, that they put into the air. They're evolved species, and they have these chemicals that are signaling molecules that tells the beneficial insects to come towards them. We'll take care of you. So sun hemp is a wonderful plant to draw a lot of life to the field. The cover crop has many benefits, many services it offers to the soil. Weed prevention is huge for us in farming. Whether you're conventional or whether you're organic, weed suppression is really the big deal. So here's the size of the weeds that I found underneath the cover crop. That's the size you want them, okay? By the cover crop being expertly selected at a higher rate of seed, sown well into a well-prepared seed bed, you get quick growth. The sun hemp will outgrow weeds and suppress them to this size. Now this weed will not put on seed. It's underneath now, it's been rolled over. It's not gonna turn into a weed. So this is a really huge, quiet thing that's going on in the field here. I think Vincent has in his hand some insects. Yeah. I have an insect here in my hand, and this cover crop is the reason that these life forms are here. If I grow a cover crop, insects come to it, and insects on site are born. And between those two, on 1 acre in 1 year, you might have as much as 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of insects that are brought to your site. which when they die, yield up nutrients for you that you did not buy. So the cover crop has brought you 1,500 pounds of 12% nitrogen, which most insects have about 12% nitrogen when they're decomposed.
That's huge, right?
The cover crop is offering a huge service to lower the amount of inputs you need. I'm not saying eliminate, but lower them, and thereby lowering imports that are very expensive. There's a third way, at least, that the cover crop will increase the nitrogen availability in your soil to your plants, to your subsequent crop, and that is by this phenomenon of the free living nitrogen fixers in soil being benefited from the carbon that's brought from the legume, from the grass, from the cover crop. So in three major ways, the cover crop, whether it's legume or not, is contributing to N in the soil.
You know, one of the things that really moves my spirit with the work that we're doing is that we want to keep farmers making a living at farming. We want them to have the ability to, and so if we're lowering their inputs by these protocols we're talking about, that's really a big step towards that, yeah.
If there's anything that's become apparent the last year or two to us in farming and to the public is we need sustainability.
The other reason why I like a higher amount of seed in the ground, yes, it does create a mulch. However, it also acts as an armor for all the microbiology that's happening underneath. And another thing I wanted to add was that it's great news about the cover cropping and the carbon that it fixes in conjunction with compost. What I found is that I don't have access to like a lot of compost. So what I've noticed is that what I'll do is I'll mulch my fields, and just over a period of time that mulch basically turns into a form of compost. And I'm really excited about that. I want to share that with everybody because it's exciting, because as a farmer I really feel good that when I go into the land and I look at the biology and the life that's in there, I got a baseline. But however, after my practices of using cover crops and using mulching, when I go back in the field and I look at the soil when I'm harvesting, you can see the life. So it's a really good feeling down deep inside that I know that when I leave a field after I'm through with my crop, the soil is better than when I first got there. Just through observation, through other farmers that are regenerative farmers also, is that they are going more diversifying what's in their fields. And I can see the difference. And I think along with this and having diversification in what you're growing on your farm, it really increases the benefits to not only the soil, but to the farmer and to all the people that consume the food. This soil health initiative that is bringing this forward is a step that I feel we can have that kind of traction, so where people start to pay attention across the islands to see how important this is. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been really a wonderful time to share with you. So let's move on to the next piece of what this is all about. So one of the things I noticed about after the crop's been rolled and crimped is that when I pull back this biomass, that the soil is so very moist. You're talking a proliferation of microbes.
As Vince says, this nice, densely planted leguminous cover crop has been laid over onto the ground. So we are in compliance with the rule in farming that says we want to keep our ground covered at all times. Now sometimes we don't think about this, but to me, this is a habitat. There are a lot of insects that like to live underneath this mulch, this habitat that we've just created. Vincent further referred to the bacteria and fungi that are actually in the soil being benefited because the sun is not baking them and the moisture is being retained. I like the job that was done here. The farmer had to choose the right type of seed. They had to sow it at the right rate to get this effect. Then the correct tool needed to be applied. It was a roller crimper that would put nice crimps into the plant all the way along, thereby killing this plant, as we want this plant dead now to die in place and smother any other small weeds that might try to germinate. So I'm seeing that this is nice and even. That's simple to look at and recognize. It's a little trickier to get it into that position. It takes a little bit of skill building. This was pulled off very nicely. It's very dense. It should suppress the weeds very well.
So I found this rock in the trench in the lower soil horizon here in this backhoe trench. It's about a 5-foot backhoe trench dug. And guess what? It's not a rock. It's really compacted soil. It looked like a rock. So I don't know any roots that would want to go through this as far as a food crop goes. There's cover crops that Bob talked about earlier that could plow through this, and that's the beauty of what a cover crop brings.
We can't see into the soil, so we have to dig a hole and look at how the horizons, the layers of the soil are arranged, and to look for compaction. Here in Maui, many places in the US, we have farmed upwards of 90 and 100 years on some fields. There can be compaction that happens.
You know, on the isthmus here, there's a lot of trees being planted and such. When those roots go down, unless there's a calcium saturation that actually opens up the soil, allowing the roots to go deeper, when you have big winds or when you have any kind of an issue and those roots aren't deep, not only are they not tapping into the moisture that's down below, but they're susceptible to being uprooted.
As Paia was talking earlier today, it may be the last time he tills this field. We have a need to get away from tillage because it breaks up the soil too much. It oxidizes, allows oxygen to go into the soil and allows carbon to be left as a gas from our soils, and that is what we don't want from tillage. However, in soils like this that have developed impermeable hard pans, I need to use backhoe pits to identify the depth and then use the proper ripping equipment to come in and break those hard pans, because it'll save years and years of trying to get roots into them. We need to have some knowledge about our soils. The rule always is know yourself, know your fields, know your crop. So by knowing my field, I need to do soil analysis, determine what I need to apply, and then make those applications to the freshly ripped field, then move towards preparing a seed bed.
So you're talking about with your soil analysis, then being able to know what minerals are available, and for plants to do their best, what you need to apply for plants to do their best?
Chemistry, if you will, for nutrients to determine what's too high. We want to stop applying those things. If I have too much of something, I don't want to apply any more. Or what's low. You can see the roots from the plant. I can see it go right down, and those roots are concentrated in the darker colored upper horizon of soil, typically what we call the A horizon. That's because most of the nutrients, most of the humus, and the better structure are in the top 1.5 or 2 feet of soil. Below that, we start to get these very low oxygen, low pH, concentrated areas of soil.
And so there's nodules that form on these roots, yeah? Could you speak about these nodules?
This is the legume that Vincent's holding. He's referring to the specialized cells on the roots where a bacterium can go inside, set up an anaerobic zone, and start to bring nitrogen that's in the air into the plant. The plant uses that nitrogen for its own benefit, so I don't have to feed it so much nitrogen. And then when these roots mineralize, when they break down and release the nitrogen in the soil, that's where we get the benefit from a legume.
We rolled and crimped this every 7 inches, this particular cover crop, so it would die in place and leave that biomass on the ground to cover the soil. What is the optimum time to be able to do that rolling and crimping?
So to roll and crimp these plants, the optimum time is when it goes into flower. You notice these are conspicuously in flower. Bobby has chosen this time because he knows that that's a peak time in the plant's physiology and its life cycle, where it has high nitrogen, lots of nutrients, and the stem on this is still succulent enough that we can crimp it and lay it down.
What happens to all these roots?
Remember that the roots have went into the soil. They've created channels, so they're creating open spots. They're creating spaces where air and water can come into the soil. The roots are exuding carbon. Liquid carbon is coming out of the roots and into the soil. And then when the root is traveling through the pore spaces, putting out its liquid carbon, it's also sloughing off cells. That's 3 ways it's giving carbon to the soil. And the 4th way that carbon is given to the soil is by when the root dies. Its entire channel is given up. And guess where the next root comes in the soil when you grow the next plant? It grows through the least path of resistance into the old root channel and runs down to where the old root stopped and starts into the next world. On these roots, this is where the microbe life is. out in the bulk of soil, very low microbe life. And it's because the root is feeding the microbe. So by growing the cover crop plant, growing a diversity of cover crop plants over time in space, we feed bacteria, fungi, nematode, and protozoa with an excellent diet which increases their functions. There's 7 functions that the bacteria, fungi, nematode, and protozoa produce in soil that are irreplaceable. We feed bacteria and fungi plants to enable those bacteria and fungi to improve my soil to where I can grow better crop plants for us and our animals.